Hi there, this is Matt with the Why We Horror podcast, here to talk to you about A Nightmare on Elm Street. I want to hit you with a couple of trigger warnings before getting into the nitty gritty of what this is. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a film that deals heavily with bodily mutilation and sexual assault, as well as various other traumas. It is a movie about trauma, after all, and overcoming that including various forms of abuse, such as alcoholism. We will be covering all of that stuff. If you are watching this, you are seeing it a little differently on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, just kind of go along with it. I recorded this once before, but my audio didn't pick up, so I'm re-recording my sections here. Luckily, YouTube does this really beautiful thing where they capture a transcript, so I'm going off of that. All right. First things first, let's get to know each other. I'm asking everybody here what the scariest movie they've ever seen is and how old they were when they saw it. The answer for me is hi, I'm Matt, and that movie for me is The Evil Dead, which I saw when I was just 12 years old. Who would like to go next?
I go next. I'm Mike, and I couldn't really think of like a scariest movie, but when I do remember a time when Amityville Horror, the Ryan Reynolds one, terrified me, and I must have been, I don't know, 12. Looking back, I'm like, why did I think that was scary? But that's what jumps out to me.
Fair enough. Moving on to
I can go. I'm Paris. I think the scariest movie I ever saw, probably same as Michael, is looking back, I'm not sure why, but was Silence of the Lambs, and I saw it way too early at probably like first or second grade.
wow. Right on.
I don't even want to say mine because it happens to be this movie, freaking Nightmare on Elm Street. I think I was much older. I was like 12 at the time, but it still terrified the crap out of me. And definitely still doesn't to this day. So, yeah.
Very cool. That was my little fun parlor trick. I was talking with one of the bartenders that I work with who had a theory that everybody's scariest movie they saw happened when they were 12, and it's funny that that happened to three. Anyway,
We are going to be talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven's 1984 film that was written by Wes Craven, starring John Saxon, Ronee Blakley, Heather Langenkamp, Amanda Wyss, and Nick Corri, with Robert Englund as Fred Krugger, and the introduction of Johnny Depp. This was the first acting role of his. Cinematographer on here was Jock Haitkin. The score was by Rick Shaine, with an iconic and unusual score. Edited by Charles Bernstein, with makeup by David Miller, who is the one who created the Freddy makeup, and special effects by Jim Doyle, almost all of which were practical. And that's what makes this film kind of hold up in some ways, not to tip my cards in the direction I lean with this film, which was produced by Robert Shaye. I feel like it's important to name him, as he is an active figure in the mythology of this movie. So I had to throw his name in there. Brief synopsis of this film is that four teens are being haunted by a boogeyman in their dreams that may be punishment for a cover-up their parents took part in years prior. So what did we think of A Nightmare on Elm Street?
For me, I thought I wish I could have seen this without knowing like more of the lore because some of it was interesting. It's a little cheesy looking now, but I was like, man, I wish I didn't already know some of this stuff when I went in because the acting was kind of good.
that's
I
fair.
hated it. It's awful.
Fair enough. Why is that?
Because everything about it's dumb.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fair enough.
No,
I'm,
no, it's decent. It's definitely not as scary as I remembered, but like I do understand why childhood me was terrified of it. So it gets a lot of like themes, and the acting is good. Even if a lot of the special effects are cheesy and like, yeah, over the top.
fair enough. What did Paris think of the movie?
Overall, I liked it. I think it's kind of a easy watch in ways of like it's pretty easy to follow, which is nice. I don't have to really pay attention and like be able to keep up. Throughout it though, I was watching it with my partner and he was like, "You're frustrated," and I was like, "I am frustrated right now." So I think there's a lot of frustrations that came up throughout the plot of the movie for me.
Let's pull that apart. Where are your frustrations?
I think watching it, I think the like underlying thing for me was just like I was really upset with the parents about their like lack of validating of the kids' situations and what they were coming to the parents with. I thought there was so many systems failures throughout the entire movie between like the criminal justice system, child protection, like no follow-ups, anything like that, the education system, family systems. And then yeah, I thought the trauma transmissions going through it too and nobody stepping in was also a frustration that I had, but I think the symbolism was really on point throughout the whole movie.
Yes.
I agree with you on the frustrating parts about the parents, especially knowing like what they know about the character that's being described in the dream. It's like something weird's happening here, and I'm just gonna pretend it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
I had an interesting like I think childhood me is definitely like very frustrated at like the ineptness of the adults like not paying attention, but like I think adult me really hates how close to home and true this actually hits, that like a lot of times yeah, kids like kids do lie a lot of the times, right? And innocently make things up a lot of the times. And oftentimes when there are real things going on, it gets brushed aside, or even when there's very valid allegations, right, of some sort of abuse. Those I think it's kind of interesting to think about how the gut feeling is to get frustrated with like the parent and the people in the situation, and then for me it's like a second gut punch when you realize, oh yeah, that actually happens quite often in real life.
Yeah.
So I agree. I happen to love this movie. I said the scariest movie I ever saw was the first Evil Dead back when I was 12 years old. The other movie that I saw that very same year that scared the absolute crap out of me was this one. So much so that I even made my dad sleep in the same bedroom as me just so I could finish watching this film because I was so scared to finish it on my own. And I think the reason that it does so is the sheer fact that everybody sleeps. Like, you can be somewhat scared by Friday the 13th, but it's not an experience I ever had of being a camp counselor. I like to travel a lot, so I've stayed in motels, but not everybody does. So I don't think Psycho is a universal. And I never had siblings or babysitters for that matter. So Halloween isn't one of those universals. But everybody sleeps, and everybody's had those nightmares that are so gripping and gruesome. And the thing that I think worked for me with this movie is its visual language. I think it is an incredibly surreal experience of a movie to the point where you don't know when you're dipping into somebody's dreamscape or not. And I thought that was really kind of unique and not anything like I'd seen before, really, outside of the nightmare movies. And none of them have ever been done this well, in my opinion. Mike, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you said that you can't really tell when they're in the dream or not, because I thought it was super obvious. Like and it's not just that there's always fog when they're in the dream. Like you can I don't know. It seemed like it had a different tone when they fell asleep, especially in the classroom. Like nobody else was moving. Like it's just okay. You know right away that she's asleep now. At least I thought that.
Yeah, I got surprised a couple times, I think, but for the most part, I think I could tell. I can't remember the specific scenes that surprised me, though.
The time specifically where I don't really know if she's in a dream or not is when she's in the bedroom with Johnny Depp, and then she goes off to investigate something with Rod, and we don't really know what's going on in that scene that's leading up to it or anything. And then Johnny Depp just walks out of a bush, and she's like, "Glenn, are you still there?" And then he shows up, and he's like, "Yeah," and then just goes back into the bush. All of that. I remember the first time seeing that and being so confused until Tina is in the body bag, shows up, and then I'm like, oh, she's asleep.
So yeah, I knew that she was asleep there. What I didn't get was how Johnny Depp was in the dream. So was she just dreaming him being there?
Yeah.
So that must have just been a dream version of him.
Yeah, I imagine it's one of those things when you're kind of drifting and you call out to your other, and they talk to you, and you just kind of pull that into your dream, like you're sort of awake but you're still kind of asleep. And even if they do respond, you just kind of incorporate that into your dream.
I don't want to get too deep into this, but I do want to talk about this later about when something is a dream and when it isn't. I want to kind of discuss that, so I'm going to put that on the sideline for now.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, this is a movie that I've always liked for a multitude of reasons. I think it's scary because of what we've just talked about. I think Freddy himself is a pretty compelling villain, both visually and his presentation within the film. And the structure of this movie is really unique in that you don't know anything about him for about an hour into the picture, and then you're finally given information. To that point, he's just a nameless boogeyman who calls himself Freddy, so I guess he has a name, a couple of times. But then when you are given this information, it kind of repaints everything and invites a second watch almost, because the behavior of all of the characters that was so frustrating starts to make sense. Like the behavior of the parents, the behavior of the kids suddenly makes so much more sense when you recognize the trauma in their backstory. And I think that's one of the best components of the film, is its dissection of the generational trauma and how the events of the parents kind of work their way into the kids. And it's through this, you're being told throughout, or shown things throughout, but not really told things outright. It's subtle, like when you see Tina's mom, uh, the one time you see her, and there's the suggestion there that she's a little promiscuous, maybe. The event that led to Freddy's death, kind of, the way she copes with it is through sex, and therefore the way Tina and Rod do so is through sex as well. And Rod's parents are complete non-entity. They are just not there outside of at the funeral, where you see two people looking sad and the camera doesn't even linger on them. Johnny Depp has parents that are completely overbearing, and Ronee Blakley, Marge, Nancy's mother, is driven to alcoholism. And the father, it fractures their relationship, and he's focused so much so on criminal justice, where he didn't get that prior to, because he and they took the law into their own hands. It's like he's never going to allow this to happen again, and that's his conviction from that point forward. So there's this so much to pull apart here, with just a single conversation embedded deep into the middle of this movie, that's just implied. All these things suddenly have a ripple effect throughout everything that you've just watched, and it repaints and recontexts everything. And I think that's what elevates this above its brethren. You don't get this same rich context or thematic energy in even like the good movies like Halloween, or certainly any of the Friday the 13th. You have to wait till you get to Scream to get such a compelling backstory to all of this. And Freddy is just he's just a compelling villain.
Yeah, and that's why I said at the beginning that I wish I didn't know what I know about the character, because I thought that mystery would have been so fun to just like unravel myself, and not from like the cultural zeitgeist, you know.
Does anybody else have anything they wanna say regarding Freddy?
I think you did a good job describing it right there.
Yeah.
I'm
Fair enough.
his name's like Voldemort to me.
That's fair. Does anybody have anything else they would want to say with regards to the trauma of the movie and the generational trauma?
I think my thing with it is just coming through of when trauma is buried, it will resurface in one way or another. And within this film, it just comes through when people are sleeping and coming through nightmares. Um, and usually when trauma comes out, it often comes out in ways that feel impossible to reason with alone, which is I think why we lean a lot on peers and that kind of stuff. And the tragedy I feel like within this movie is not just that Freddy kills, but it's just within that social fabric of the town was so compromised already that the teens felt like they had to deal with all of this alone. Within the intergenerational trauma, the community level trauma, everything was so compounded by systemic neglect in all areas. Where I think my big takeaway is trauma always comes back out one way or another.
Yeah, and I think coming also from like a more psychology perspective, I definitely think there's a lot of truth to that, of things that people aren't consciously aware of kind of bubbling in more subconscious sort of processes where, you know, I mean, there's a famous book in the last decade, like The Body Keeps Score, that some people may have heard of. And there's definitely a good amount of truth there. But I find it really fascinating, this idea that either in dreams, or I think sometimes through like creative outlets or like fiction, people find an outlet to, I think, sometimes express or process some of those emotions that might be subconscious. And it's a way to deal with it where it's always easier if it's a fictionalized account because it's not you in your own real life. But it's similar enough to where I think people are able to at least process some of it. So I think there's a lot of real value in pieces that allow, or kind of, allow people to process some emotions that maybe aren't as comfortable for society for them to kind of vent to. And so that's kind of an interesting thought.
I found Craven's approach to writing and presentation of the character Freddy kind of interesting, in the sense that he looked at it kind of academically. He researched like the colors that are hardest on our retinas to read next to each other, which is red and green, which is exactly why his sweater is those colors. It's so that he would be visually disturbing to us even on a sub level. He chose a glove of razors because he wanted it to be very human villain, but he also wanted it to be something that had a primal fear that was embedded in everybody, that everybody could attach to. And what's the first thing that anybody is like, even from the times of old, raised to fear? It's the claw of a bear or a cougar, a cat's claw. So that was the design there. He named Freddy after his childhood bully. So that's kind of a fun little fact. And then he modeled Freddy after somebody who scared him when he was quite young. When he was a kid sleeping in his room, he had heard a noise outside, and he looked out his window down the street, and there was a man who was wearing dirty clothes, who looked up at him and just kind of stared into this child's eyes and had this like malice face as he did so. Wes hid when and then he waited for a long time and then looked out the window once more, and the man was still there smiling, and it just terrified him. He ran to get his brother and scared the dude away. But that stuck with him. So he applied all of these kind of things academically thought out on top of this one person, and gave this character a character. So that's what makes him different than Jason, who's just kind of an unstoppable force without ever a bit of dialogue. Or Michael Myers, who is such a non-character, he is literally credited as the Shape in the original Halloween. He's just a presence. But Freddy, he taunts his victims. He plays with them. And that's what kind of makes him scary. He has this disturbing character on top of this visage of pure evil, and just scary look about him. The whole suggestion that he is a child predator, both killer and in the original script he was a child molester that murdered his victims. It's still embedded in the film. The suggestion of the child predator is insanely unsettling. I mean, one of the first lines he says to Nancy is "Come to Freddy," right before pantomiming oral sex, which is disturbing given what you know about that character later on. And all of that is kind of baked into him. Freddy is just generally captivating.
Freddy is, so I'm gonna say something negative about Freddy here.
Okay.
Because I'd like it, the thought of him and all the horrible stuff about him, like as a character, but he is probably the weakest villain because little girls are like throwing him around the house. Like he's like barely wrestling off these little kids. Like how old is the Nancy? 15 years old?
16, I think.
16. Yeah. And she's just like pummeling him, knocking him out, and he's like invincible in the dream, and he's getting beat up by a little girl. and so does his powers, like what's his end goal? To torture them? Like he wants to kill them, but to torture them because he keeps coming back.
I think it's more of an allegory for the trauma rather than a realistic villain.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I don't like the thought of that.
That's just it. Freddy plays as an allegory for a kind of assault trauma that some youths experience. He has obvious things like his come to Freddy moment, which is very much sexual, but he also is always visually shown as being a man with you in your bed, intimately with you in your bed. And he's the one in control until you take that control away from him. And that's the ultimate lesson that Nancy learns, is that this mythic figure that has no actual changeability isn't the one with the power. She is. And I think that's the reason why this movie is as good as it is. It's not because of Freddy, it's because of Nancy. Nancy Thompson is the most compelling part of this movie, certainly, but also this franchise.
Well, for that to be true, the ending of the movie can't exist the way that
We're
it's
gonna touch on the
portrayed.
ending. We're gonna touch on the ending because that's something that was a conceit made uh, that there was some pushback to. That wait for my trivia.
Okay, because yeah, I'm aware of issues with it, but yeah.
Yes, but it's not a movie that's without criticism. And you're right, Freddy is a little more flimsy than the sturdy Jason or Michael Myers. But uh, yeah, the fear that he can inspire is what makes him, I guess, interesting. But no, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, because I don't want to be like, you can't take part of the movie and ignore it just because you
No,
don't like that to make a point. You know what I mean?
no,
Because I 100% agree that up until a certain point, that is the lesson, but then it isn't the lesson. So you can't say that it is if that's how we have to take the media. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess since we've talked about it, we'll talk about it now. So I'll just bump this piece of trivia up to this point here. The ending of this film was forced upon Wes by producer Bob Shaye. Wes felt the need to bend because without Bob's help, this movie wouldn't have happened. He shopped this movie around, Craven did, for around 3 years, and nobody wanted the film. It was too abstract. It wasn't like other horror films, and there was no confidence in it. Um, Robert Shaye saw the potential, and he went out of his way to move mountains to raise the money to make this movie. It trimmed like $1 million. It's insane. So Wes agreed to two conceits. When Nancy's running up the stairs and she starts falling through the stairs, Rob Shaye was insistent that that happened, that she started falling into the stairs. And Wes was like, well, it's not in the script. And he's like, yeah, but it's scary. And so he was like, fine, you can do it, but I'm not shooting it. So Robert Shaye actually directed that one moment. And his other thing was the ending doesn't allow for sequels. The original ending is she goes outside, has the meeting with her mom, and then walks off into the car back with Johnny Depp, and they drive away as the girls are jump roping and singing the Nightmare song, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And that was the end of the film. But Robert Shaye was like, no, we're going to film it, and Freddy's going to be driving the car. There was back and forth, and finally they came to an agreement. Freddy can be in control of the car, and sure, you can also have Freddy kill Marge and let her get killed. But I also think that is easily the worst scene of the entire film.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Like for me, when I watch it, I stop it with her running to. Once she gets in the car with Glenn, I just stop the movie.
And yeah, I agree that should be how the ending is. Especially because if they just had the fog like they do,
Yeah,
and just ended it, it is still ambiguous. Like, because did she dream the entire events of the entire movie, or what's going on here? So that's an
yeah,
interesting question to end on. Instead, they had to throw in the worst possible dummy getting sucked through a window.
it is hilarious. Like even when I was a kid, I was like, "That's fake."
Yeah, that made me really angry. Honestly, I was really mad because I didn't remember that at all when I watched this again. So
You're not the only one. One of my coworkers, that's his big negative against this film, and partly why he doesn't like or respect it as much as I do is because of like it's one of those old-fashioned horror movies that just doesn't allow an ending to happen, and it just an excuse to make sequels and bad ones at that. And he's, that is the ending. He's not wrong.
and sorry to derail a little bit, but you brought up the stairs sinking into the staircase.
Yeah,
I think that was a really good change
I
because
agree.
because there isn't a whole lot of dream manipulation, like transporting to different locations, but really there's only like 3 scenes where there's like a dream manipulation that's, you know, Freddy showing something or doing something like in a real dream.
Yeah. There was more. So I watched this movie so many times in research for this, including reading the script and the novelization. Um, and in the original script, there was more dream manipulation. It was a budget thing. Like when Tina's first running away from Freddy, her feet get like kind of over large and heavy, and there was no way to sell that convincingly, so it just never got filmed. But there was a lot more of that where he was toying with them, and he's a lot more brutal in the script.
I wonder if part of it was like an artistic choice for a film of like not knowing quite always when it was a dream versus reality, whereas the more dream manipulation there is, the more clear it would be when they're dreaming and not.
Yeah. I think the most. Oh, go ahead, Paris.
I was just gonna say I kind of like the like reality of the dream states, just because I think it does show of like there is more of that feeling of like this could be happening or this could happen in real life, because there isn't that piece of like the manipulation within the dreams compared to just like, wow, this is really realistic and this could be happening. So I actually kind of liked that.
Where do we land with the character of Nancy? Because for me, I think, like I said, she's kind of in a lot of ways the best final girl in a slasher, and we don't acknowledge her as such. And I have very specific reason as to why I think that is, but I want to hear what everybody has to say about her before I kind of give my 2 cents.
Paris, if you want to go first, if you have a thought.
I think overall I like Nancy. I think she's a good character in this movie. I think realistically, based off of the generational trauma that we talked about earlier, I think she's a lot more adult than the average, probably high schooler would be. But I think there's obviously reasons for that. And I think she plays well within the relationship with her parents. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like the fact that she has to go through like basically her entire friend group dying and nobody in her family believing anything she's saying and just ignoring her problems and pretending they don't exist, and then having to like solve the murders and protect herself, and even showing evidence that like this is really happening and people just ignoring her. The amount of strength that she had to like have to persevere and then to solve the issue and come up with a solution where she survives is, you know, not a whole lot of these. I don't think she makes many stupid like horror movie decisions. I think she's really well written.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, where I definitely liked her, and like even though like there might be individual choices she made that I would not necessarily do, there is always like it was consistent with her and made sense. And so I thought she was pretty well written, and yeah, it is. Part of me is just like, dude, why keep like nobody believes you? Kind of like screw them. Like I don't know, go just hide off in the woods somewhere. But so yeah, the strength she has, I think, to keep going. I think just that sort of resilience, which again, it's a movie, so the main character is always gonna get up and keep going, even if it's more extreme than pretty much any normal human could normally take. I do think it sets a good example of like, yeah, like shit can be going wrong in your life, but like you can still find the solutions that there are, and then life can pick back up, in the future. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I really like the character of Nancy for kind of a multitude of reasons. But I think she has been kind of given a bad hand. I mean, obviously, her friends around her are dying, and her parents, one is detached from her and focused on law and order. And she's pretty estranged from him, to the point where he even uses her as a pawn at one point, and the other is an alcoholic and whatnot. And that was something that I could relate to, my mom being an alcoholic herself. When I was young, I latched on to Nancy quite a bit. I thought the portrayal of all that was incredibly realistic, especially that confrontation with her mom in the kitchen, where she's tempted to veg out with her, but says screw sleep and slams the bottle on the ground. But what I found really interesting about Nancy is that of all the final girls that there are, the most famous of which is Laurie Strode from the Halloween movies, or Sidney Prescott and Gail Weathers from Scream, or to a lesser extent Ginny in Friday the 13th 2, or even Sam Carpenter in the more recent Scream films. These are all characters that are reactionary to the situation. They are pawns for the main villain to manipulate, whereas Nancy is the only one that's proactive throughout the film. She's the one developing a plan and always is trying to do so to take on Freddy, and even initiates the final battle. Whereas Laurie didn't do that until Halloween H2O, or even the more recent 2018 film. Sydney didn't become proactive in the final battle until her final appearance in the franchise. Nancy initiates this, and she goes into a battle a couple of times over, and you see the strength and the resilience throughout the film. She makes a plan of having a buddy with her while she takes a nap. It's just that her boyfriend sucks and can't help but fall asleep, which is also the most realistic thing in the world. I've been accused of that. But all the while she's doing this, she's going out to stores and buying research on how to do self-defense, and looking up like the Guinness Book of World Records for how long somebody has slept.
That's what's funny about that scene, specifically about the Guinness Book. That helps you tell how long it's been in the movie, how many days have gone by, because it's hard to tell how many days have gone by without that little line.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, so I just find her really interesting. But Paris touched on one thing that I think is interesting with her character moving forward, because she is one of the few Nightmare characters that reappears. And there's a trilogy of Nightmare films, 1, 3, and 7, that really focus on Nancy's story. Nancy being the main character, as opposed to Freddy, which you get with most of the other sequels. And in this, in her first scene, she's introduced as a sidekick, because you're made to think that Tina is the main character. Even in the script, she is written as Tina's best friend, Nancy. And Nancy's not developed as if she was the main character. She starts as this kind of childlike innocence of a kid, and has a pretty subservient to her parents, her mom especially, and whatnot, until you get her to take like this adult turn where she's putting her mother to bed and taking away her bottle, tucking her in for the night. In a sense, she has become the nurturer by the end of that film, and this carries on to number 3 and eventually number 7. And you see this transition from a young girl to woman to like functional adult, and then finally to a mother later in the series as it goes. And I think it's really interesting, consistent drive that never gets rolled back in any big way.
Well, I have a question.
What was that?
What did you think about the music?
So I really, really like the music. I know some people aren't on board with the synth thing, but I actually think this score is scary as hell. I put it on from time to time when I'm like writing, especially if it's a more sinister, scary scene that I'm working on. There's a lot of like sudden loud noises and stuff like that. And it's written in unusual keys, so you're listening, and notes that should be in places kind of are done a little differently in an unexpected way. And yeah, I don't know. There's just an unsettling tone to it all. And I think there's this like fervent energy to the music for me that I really really appreciate.
For me, I mean, I get it's a product of the time too. They had to always have like sound.
Yeah.
But I think only one scene for me, the music, I was just like, absolutely not. The scene where Nancy burns her arm to get out of the dream, that whole sequence was too like upbeat disco-y. And I was like, what's happening here?
You know,
Otherwise, the most of the other
favorite
music to me
track.
was good. What'd you say?
That's my favorite track.
See, I mean, it's not a bad song. It just doesn't
No.
fit the tone for I don't think it fits the tone, honestly. I think this movie would be a million times scarier if it did subtle sounds instead of like the sweet like disco soundtrack where I'm running away from Freddy who's like hobbling at me because he's just some guy.
Yeah, but this movie does not need to be any scarier.
It does. It does need to be scarier. I'm sorry.
I guess that's a good question, Sasma. You said in the beginning that this was the scariest movie in your youth. How did that hold up? You said that it wasn't as scary as you remembered, but
It was still like fairly like, because I think the idea of dreams and like I find the concept of people sharing a dream just really cool. But the idea of that Inception and started with A Nightmare on Elm Street of like dreams being kind of in a Freudian sense, some window into the subconscious. And although Freud has a lot of issues, kind of getting people talking about the unconscious and subconscious processes is something that I think is very important and is one of the things that he's contributed to the field of psychology that does hold up well today.
yeah.
But so still scary. It's definitely cheese. Like I mean, it's just dated now. Like if it was actually, I almost watched the 2010 remake without realizing it. I didn't realize there actually had been one.
It's so bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay.
So to tie into your dream scary point, because I also think that dream movies can be scary. I think Insidious, the first one, the premise of that was pretty creepy. Do you think that was scarier than Nightmare on Elm Street now, if you've seen both of them?
So it just happened to be like, I don't even think A Nightmare on Elm Street was any scarier than other movies I saw. Like I was over at Matt's house watching other rated R movies. Like I don't think The Evil Dead scared me. Like I think it was just some weird combination of like I was immersed enough for it to feel very real. And like dream sort of stuff, like where I think what was that?
I was gonna say we watched it late at night, and I remember the thing that freaked you the fuck out is I had the exact same clock as Nancy, or no,
Oh goddamn! What are you doing to me?
No wonder.
Time was the exact same on the timestamp, like in the clock down, like it was 11:42, and you looked at the clock that was the exact same, and it said 11:42.
Well, goddamn!
Yeah, that was pretty much your reaction.
All right, well, hey, okay. This movie is the scariest if it can line up with time.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah,
You were on Elm Street the whole time.
You were like, I was really scared that I like was going to give you a heart attack because you didn't want to finish it, and I'm like, well, you got to finish
No,
it.
just lifelong trauma.
I was like,
And how old did you say you were? 12?
Yeah, 12.
Yeah, you're right. That's a scary year.
I actually don't remember the specifics of the movie at all. Like, I do remember being scared by it, but, like, the details definitely have faded. Like, where I didn't remember almost anything other than, like, what's been in pop culture about, Freddy and A Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
The one part that stuck with me from that, showing it to you when we were young, was when Nancy sees Tina in the second dream where she's looking over at Rod, who's sleeping, and she starts backing away, and then Freddy goes, I can hear you. And then he pops out from behind the bushes at her, and she runs, and there's that big zing kind of sound. You started convulsing, and I was like, did I just kill him? I thought you were having like a seizure. But yeah, you were absolutely terrified.
I like that.
I hear you.
I wish that I could have that. To be that scared of
use that
something like with your friends.
Oh, I muted myself. I was gonna say, hey, I made it through the movie though, right?
Yeah, you did. You didn't want to do anything Freddy related afterwards. Have you seen any of the other Freddy?
Or since? No, goddamn, this is the first time.
Fair enough. The other ones aren't this scary. This is the scariest one.
Yeah, no, yeah, again, I think I probably didn't sleep for like 3 days or something after watching it, so nothing too long-term traumatizing.
So Paris, a notorious movie watcher. Did you know much about this before watching it?
Surprisingly, I have seen this before.
Really?
I know. It's kind of wild. So yeah, I've seen this before. It's been probably years though since I've seen it. I think now watching it as an adult with probably like my professional background and everything, I definitely viewed it through a different lens at this point, which definitely made it a lot more engrossing for me to watch. So I think I had a lot more buy-in this time around when I watched it, of looking kind of at the underlying meaning compared to just watching it when I was probably in high school being like, yeah.
He put his arm against the wall. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, where I was like, shucks.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question. So you've seen this movie. Did you see the sequels?
I don't think so. If I have, it's probably been like 1 or 2 of them. But no, like this one, I definitely, when he brought it up, I was like, okay, I've definitely seen this. And like I could pinpoint like a couple scenes of it that I knew. And then watching it, I was like, oh yeah, these are the same scenes. So I can't confirm I've seen any more of them after this one.
I know I
feel like I probably...
like Sasma wouldn't let me show him Nightmare 3, which is the direct sequel to this one. Nightmare 2 is very loosely related.
Okay.
And not something I would probably cover on this podcast unless people really want it. But I do.
No, Matt, we don't want any of that.
We'll just skip right to the third.
Yeah, we're gonna skip to the third at some point, for sure, and I'll probably have you guys back for that. But
Freddy transitions into being more of the main character and becomes like a kind of a jester from hell kind of a presence rather than an actually scary entity as the series moves along. It's only the ones that Wes Craven was involved with where Freddy has a grounded kind of scary state. So I'm excited to explore that. But one of the things I did want to talk about was how I kind of view this as Wes Craven's masterpiece, not in like the sense that this is his best movie, though I think it is one of his better movies, but in the sense that he had taken everything he had learned throughout his filmic career to that point of its release and presented it as if it's like this is what I'm capable of doing. For the first time, you've got the sort of exploitative shock horror of Last House on the Left. You've got the whole ending with the booby trapping of the house that's lifted directly from Last House on the Left, as well as his second credited feature film, The Hills Have Eyes. He recreated a shot that didn't work from Deadly Blessing and put it to much better use here, and that was the hand kind of coming at the screen as Nancy is taking a bath and falling asleep with like beautiful phallic imagery. So he learned how to effectively light a movie with Deadly Blessing as well, and he was able to kind of keep independent control a little more and exercise that with this film. He made compromises with the producers, and you can just see how he pulls all of the elements of the films and what worked with his earlier films together for this. So Wes Craven has always been an ambitious filmmaker. Very ambitious. I think John Carpenter with Halloween made a very technically grounded movie and knew how to work within his means of the budget that he had. Um, but Wes was always kind of willing to push, and especially so with this film, to the point where you have like the first death is like the most traumatizing one, where the girl is being slashed and dragged across the walls and the ceiling and stuff like that. It's a very ambitious death scene and fascinating to see. Not to mention Johnny Depp's blood splatter tornado. It's fascinating to see the evolution of his character to the point that this came, to his career to the point that this came out. Knowing sort of schlocky yet effective horror movies that came before this one.
Yeah. Um, you said evolution, and it made me think of the way that Freddy killed everybody in this movie. So, not to derail, but
I actually wanted to touch on this too, so I'm glad you're talking about it. Go.
okay. So the first one slashes, great. That's cool. Second one, what's his face hangs himself in the thing, or that's what it looks like. Okay, two crazy, not really understandable deaths, but like you can see it happening. The whole boyfriend kills the girlfriend and hangs himself. The third one, how is the dad, cop dad, not running over to his daughter's house and kicking that door down the second he sees that there's a hole in the bed that it shot blood spray out of it, and they're just like, who could have done this? Could have been anybody. Must have been the human blender.
That sent me.
I'm like, how is he not over there? He calls his homie and he's like, hey, go watch my daughter's house. And she's like screaming through the window, and he's just like, oh, I wonder if maybe I should tell the sheriff.
There's something might be up.
Yeah.
That scene, that specific moment where he's like, boy, maybe I should go get the lieutenant when like
No
Nancy's
kidding.
screaming for help in the window.
And breaking the window to like scream louder.
That's one of the tropes that Craven puts in nearly all of his movies. He doesn't have a high opinion of police, and so they oftentimes are the fool kind of characters throughout his movies. So much so that
Well, the
Dewey in the Scream franchise is kind of the buffoon character, even if he's the most lovable one. But yeah, that's something that you got repeated right from his very first movie, Last House on the Left. That doesn't make it any less frustrating.
It's just like, oh, I wonder what happened here. The Kool-Aid man came in and blended him up. Like, what the heck? What do you mean what happened here?
Yeah.
Especially after you know your daughter's telling you the dreams are killing people.
I want to know what Freddy did to that poor boy.
Blended him. Got the slap chop out.
In the script, it says he gets sucked
Got the
into
magic
pit
bullet.
and his geyser of blood emerges, and all that's left is meat and the suggestion of bone or something like that. And
Nice.
I can see that.
yeah.
I'm going to talk about Nancy. This might be the most unhinged thing that she does in the entire movie. She's watching Evil Dead 2 on TV after she's like having a horrible nightmare. It's the first one?
It's the first one.
Even worse then. Hey, I'm having horrible nightmares. I should watch this movie.
You know what?
It matches the
That's one
mood.
of the things I was going to talk about. That happened because Sam Raimi and Wes Craven used to play tag in their movies. And in the first Evil Dead, so it starts with The Hills Have Eyes. In The Hills Have Eyes, in the Winnebago that they're in, on the wall is a Jaws poster, but it's ripped in half. And when Sam Raimi saw that The Hills Have Eyes, he took that to mean that Jaws was the scariest film of all time at that point, and this filmmaker thinks it's not scary, and this is what true horror looks like. So when he made The Evil Dead, there's a Hills Have Eyes poster that's ripped in half in the basement of the cabin.
Okay.
And so Wes Craven saw that and put Evil Dead on her TV and has her falling asleep to it, to say that, like, no, my movie is scarier than your movie. And so in Evil Dead 2, Freddy's glove is hanging over Ash in the woodshed. And they're
That's
just
so
kind of
petty.
ping-pong back and forth.
It's fun. A little fun banter.
Yeah,
Love it.
I love it myself. Okay. Are you guys ready to move on to like fun facts and trivia about the movie?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the most interesting one. This movie is loosely based on a real event. There was a series of incidents in California in the 1970s where Cambodian refugees who were fleeing Pol Pot's rule were dying in their sleep um, from sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome. It was something that Wes Craven, who apparently was a hoarder, was just trying to figure out what to do for his next movie in like 1980, and had insomnia. Was looking at all these newspapers, and he just saw three individual ones over the space of like 2 years as he was going through his papers. But the LA Times at the time hadn't connected the deaths. But each time it was a Cambodian refugee who was trying desperately to stay awake and was said to have died screaming suddenly. And so he kind of pieced these together and was trying to, he understood that it was likely the trauma from what they experienced in their homeland before coming here that led to their deaths, and he painted his own version of it. That Suns uh, incident that happened between like 1970 and 1980s was the result of like 20 people's deaths, all of them refugees from Southeast Asia, and it encompassed like something crazy, like 63% of all deaths of Cambodian people in the United States was because of this.
Really?
Which is
That's
remarkable.
insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, Sons wasn't like a developed term until around the time this movie came out. And in the original script, when they're at the sleep clinic, the doctor and the mom talk about this exact stuff that was the inspiration for the film, but it was cut out of the movie.
Interesting.
That is a fun fact. I guess.
So fun.
Very fun.
So fun. So
is
fun.
The guy who's the doctor in that scene is the voice of Roger Rabbit. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
You know,
teacher.
It's interesting, and I want to do more research on this later now, because I know
I went down a
there's
rabbit hole.
there's a genetic condition that's super rare, but it runs in families of not being able to sleep. And so like after 30 plus days, well, hallucinations start pretty early, but after a period of time the body will actually just die if it doesn't get sleep. It takes it can take months. But there was kind of this pattern of deaths, and at first I wasn't sure if that was the same story, but this Cambodian, it's almost the opposite, where it's they fall asleep, and then during like a night terror, I wonder if it's like an extreme like stress reaction or something like that that causes them to have like a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, and they just didn't know what the exact cause was. But it's weird and creepy, and it's weird that it makes sense that from a scientific standpoint of why this particular group of people had it, and it might not be anything genetically based, right? It's probably because they're refugees undergoing severe trauma coming from a war-torn country. Their bodies are probably already, borderline functioning, and then add on to that the trauma, and then reliving it during PTSD during a sleep episode, and you can kind of see how it might happen and become this very weird, unexpected wave of deaths.
Yeah, it happened across 7 states, all West Coast states. Over a 10-year period. I think as it's been explored more, it's something that happens with relative regularity for people that escape extreme conditions like that, but it's genuinely haunting. Sean S. Cunningham directed some uncredited second unit stuff for this. He is famous for directing Friday the 13th, which Wes Craven did some uncredited directing work on that. So both Freddy and Jason were always kind of tied together right from the start, because they were partners working on Last House on the Left, which was both of their first film. Freddy was designed by the makeup artist after he was playing with pepperoni pizza. He couldn't figure out how to get the burned makeup to look right, and he ordered a pizza, and then he was like, actually, and then he started playing around with it.
That's actually pretty smart.
Pretty gross.
It worked.
Let's see.
All right, so some quick quotes about the movie. This is from Wes Craven on the film's commentary. He says, actually, the idea of screw sleep or sleeping with the enemy was a philosophical underpinning of the film where sleep is equated with lack of knowledge of the truth. So in order to survive, you must be awake, you must know what the truth is and face it and deal with it. And the fact that all the parents are hiding the truth from what they did is causing the next generation most of its grief. That's kind of where it gets right down to the point. But one thing I also found interesting is it was too much to condense into one paragraph here, but his approach to writing was really interesting. He talked about this in an interview with Mick Garris that you can find on YouTube. Maybe I'll toss in a link. He kind of approaches it like a shaman telling a campfire story thousands of years ago, where the main character and all the characters that surround the character are all part of one uber personality he was describing. And he said that when he chooses to kill a character, it's to excise the traits of your life that are unnecessary for the conflict at hand. And he was looking at Nancy as a character who's confronting true trauma. And so the idea of having sex in a dangerous situation like Tina and Rod do is unnecessary, or fleeing like Rod did, just trying to run away. That's not going to get you anywhere. Or nor is eating or trying to just sleep your woes away. Stripping all of that away until what you are left with is your intellect and your ability to come to the conclusion of, if this only has power over me if I give it that power, so I take that power away. That was what he kind of did when opting to write this film, and I thought that was just absolutely fascinating.
Is there a dog in the background or what?
Oh yeah, my dog. Sorry.
I thought it was Matt for a second.
I do have a dog too. She could be barking. I'm deaf, so I don't know what's up.
No, it's more. Yeah, it's fine. It was in the subtle.
Yeah, she just started whining.
I have one last quote where he is talking about Nancy and how she came to be. Wes said on the commentary, I think she was based a little bit on my daughter, at least was trying to create a heroine for my daughter who criticized me sharply for the heroine Swamp Thing, who falls down when she was running. I suddenly realized, she's right. The history of women in horror films, the worst example is Fay Wray, where she basically faints. But so often you see the picture of the guy full of consciousness and upright, and the woman that is totally out of it going, my hero. Now, being raised by a widow, I knew that wasn't the way life worked. A lot of women have to go out there and make things happen and work very hard and be very brave. And so that's how Nancy came to be.
Interesting.
I like it.
Very cool. So, finally, we've come to the final moment. How many Freddy gloved fingers Freddy gloves are you going to give this movie?
I'll give it a 2.5 gloves.
2.5 gloves out of 4 or 5? 5?
Are we do 4 or 5? What do you do?
We're doing out of 5.
Oh, 3.5.
3.5 out of 5. All right,
Yes.
that's good. I accept. Ferris, what do you say?
I'll give it like a 4. It's not the best of the best, but it's a classic.
Fair enough. Sasma, how many gloves?
0. There should be no Freddy gloves in the world.
a very genuine take. And then I give this one 4.5. I think it's in a lot of ways it's a 5-star film or 5-gloved film in my heart. But there are little things that kind of irk me: the incompetence of the police, and that ending, chief among them. But I think what you have here is a shockingly inventive, especially by comparison to the brethren of films that came out at that same time. You have a very inventive film that's smart and funny and um, painfully frustrating until you realize why it's being frustrating, and then it invites rewatches. That its biggest problem outside of its disastrous ending is that it's been diluted by far inferior sequels, and but largely, this is a film I deeply love. I forgot to mention the reason that we did Nightmare on Elm Street in August was August is Wes Craven month in my mind. It's his birthday on August 2nd, and the day he passed away is the day this is launching, which is the 10th anniversary of his passing, August 30th in 2015. And so I always wanted to pay my respect to the master of horror.
For the month of September, the next episode we will be doing is Pieces, which is a movie I have not seen. I'm quite excited to check out, and we'll get a new crew of people on here to do that with us. I look forward to it.
And before you all go, I need to shill my own crap. I published a film journal a couple of years back, a 30-day horror movie challenge journal. I encourage you to pick one up. The information area below, you'll be able to get a link of where you can buy it through Amazon. And yeah, Halloween's coming up. Homeboy here's got a copy himself. Look at that. Twofers.
Yeah.
I encourage you to pick that up. But does anybody have anything they would like to say or anything?
Nope.
All right.
I've got to get going, but this was fun.
Super cool. You all are welcome to come back anytime, but I'll have you all back for Nightmare 3 in a couple of months.
Fantastic.
Peace out.
Bye,
Thanks
guys.
for having us.
Bye.